Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans made a trade on Monday and made a cut today. Adam Schefter reporting the Titans have released 2021 first-round draft pick cornerback Caleb Farley. Also yesterday, the Titans sent quarterback Malik Willis to the Packers in a trade for a 2025 seventh-round pick. It is roster cut day around the NFL. Every club must be down to 53 by 3 p.m. this afternoon. The Titans made a wave of cuts on Monday, including Steve Stylianos, Thomas Rush, and Michael Jones, among others. In other NFL news, Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb's holdout is over. He agreed to a 4-year, $136 million deal, $100 million in guaranteed money. It makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's Roster Cut Down Tuesday on Blaine and Zach here on 104.5 The Zone. We've already seen the Titans move on from 11 cuts and releases and one trade for the Tennessee Titans so far. As we wait more Titans news, you are listening to 104.5 The Zone. Our sponsor is brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, and we'll keep you updated on all the roster news around the league. Come join the conversation by hopping in the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live. As soon as I got home yesterday, Blaine, the news broke that the Tennessee Titans traded Malik Willis for a seventh-round pick to the Green Bay Packers. It's a good move for both sides. The Green Bay Packers had one of the worst backup quarterback situations with Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt. But I kind of wanted to talk about, just real quick, a little bit more about the white flag comment made by Easton Freeze. Not necessarily to harp on that yesterday when he was on our show, but I think that Malik Willis is going to a really good situation. And when if he were to inevitably go into a game, I don't think he's going to be the same Malik Willis we saw in year 1 and year 2 here in Tennessee. And that was kind of my feelings about Malik Willis in year 3 here if he were to stay and find emergency quarterback situation. But he's going to Matt LaFleur, a similar system, so it's not going to be too much for him to maybe have to learn just some new terminology and tweak his understanding. He's going to Todd Clements, who's a really good quarterbacks coach. He's been one of the key reasons for Jordan Love's development, and he's going to have a really good roster of talent around him. So what did you think about that Malik Willis situation going to Green Bay, and what do you think about the Tennessee Titans getting a seventh-round pick for him?
Well, naturally, a seventh round, just get anything for him. I think that was the plan all along from the beginning, and I think that's why they started him that second game, because nothing else made sense. I think I talked about it that day. The part that's why I wanted him to still be here is because you saw his development with this new coaching staff on the offense, starting with head coach Callahan, his development and how much he had gotten better. Now, what happens is everybody else, as you mentioned, year 1 and 2, you still can't get it out of your head. And I hate that because some coaches are like that too. And you got to believe what you see, because today is cut day all across the country, high school, college, pros, is you got to look and believe what you're seeing, not based off of last season, because everybody continues to get better. If you don't, you stand stagnant, then you'll get left behind. So I thought he really made a development. I thought he was actually shown right there that last game with that touchdown pass, that kind of confidence that what he did and stayed in that pocket, that he is a bottom tier second quarterback in this league. And with some more development and some more time, unfortunately, he doesn't have any live experience now from going forward. Naturally, if Love doesn't get hurt. So that I hate that they put in all this work up to this point in time, and he did too, and then you get nothing really. And then to get a draft pick is at least saying that you got something. And I'm talking about him as far as the Titans. So it's unfortunate, but he's probably happy, gets a fresh new start because he now is a pro-style quarterback, and he will be able to have some success in this league as a backup. I really believe that, and I'm just happy for him. You get a fresh start, and he's with LaFleur, so those guys are quarterback-friendly, style offense, and he's still dealing with an offensive-minded head coach.
I think you're looking at maybe a Geno Smith kind of situation because he has all the physical tools, right? He's just never been able to put it all together.
Right.
And Geno Smith was kind of the same way, and he kind of floated around as a backup before he got his chance.
Well, he was
in
in a
Seattle.
little tougher situation. Well,
Yeah.
They didn't have a good team, did they?
No, but I mean, neither did the Tennessee Titans when Malik Willis started. Yeah,
but he wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
But Malik wasn't there yet. He came in from a different style offense that was really kind of high schoolish style offense. And he was just the most talented player in the FCS level at Liberty once he got there from Auburn.
Because I do want to hit on that though, because I give the Mike Vrabel era some of its harshest critiques towards its end. But I do think that a lot of people are giving a lot of credit to Brian Callahan. Like Brian Callahan developed him. Those other 2 years were part of his development.
Right.
I kind of disagree because, I mean, listen, I don't think the head coach really, in certain situations, doesn't play a big deal behind the scenes in the day-to-day of the development of the quarterback.
But when you say Callahan, you're really referencing, they're not saying it, but you're also talking about the quarterback's coach as well as the offensive coordinator.
And that's what I'm saying about Mike Vrabel is that, like, do we really think that Tim Kelly and Pat O'Hara, who were there for Deshaun Watson's development, weren't doing their due diligence to try to develop Malik Willis? Same with Charles London when he became quarterback coach. Like, I have a hard time. Even when a player is bad, you get the reps and you learn and you develop from the reps, right? I mean,
but here's why I push back on that. First of all, maybe they spoke different languages. And when I say that, I'm talking about, we can use our own Murray right here.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he doing this with the Chargers? Why wasn't he? He's still the same player.
Gotcha.
All of a sudden now he's green dot guy, smart guy, leader guy. Wasn't none of that with the Chargers. So sometimes the mix with the coach and the personality impacts how well you are. Maybe some coaches just like give up too quick. It happens in the pros. That's why I said you got to believe what you see. And it's up to you to then connect with the player and his verbiage and how he learns. Now it's also on the player too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't just sit back and like, but man, I don't know what he's talking about. He's just flying through all this stuff. Well, you need to have a sit down and just have a conversation with him. And then maybe he understands how he needs to speak to you, maybe different than the other player or other players. So I put it on twofold, both sides of it, whether it's Vrabel or not. I just feel like a defensive-minded coach, actually, it takes a little more time because they're focused, they're defensive side of the ball minded. So they want a conservative offense where an offensive-minded head coach and his staff then are more, beneficial for a quarterback to get developed and is more quarterback-friendly in their offense. So I actually do believe somewhat more. I would lean more into it is Callahan's staff because the reason why I say that, it's not just Malik Willis. It's the entire freaking team. See, so I could say it's his staff, offense and defense.
Gotcha.
Well, I didn't see development there on Vrabel side. They already wanted a ready-made player. Well, in this day and age, it don't work like that. Like so, you build your team through the draft.
Let me ask you a question because you brought up, the player maybe taking an extra step to go talk to the coaches if they don't understand something. Do you think that players are too scared to do that nowadays? Because it's a different generation of how you have to treat some of these players.
Well, I think that's why I think they were scared with Vrabel.
Yeah.
Staff.
Okay.
I think some of the coaches were even scared.
Gotcha.
So I don't think players are scared. I think you have to make them feel comfortable as an athlete when you're teaching that they can come to you. If you're not teaching that way and they don't come to you and ask questions, you are doing something wrong as a coach.
Gotcha.
Sorry, that's just the way it is. You trying to get the best out of every player, even if you know the player is going to get cut. He may have an opportunity somewhere else. You still got to coach him up. So I do believe that this staff has done a different, and already it's not even been a season, and you see development of players. It's pretty clear. And they said they play freer, and it's just a different atmosphere. See, and guess what? That's this new Gen Z personality.
Yeah.
And so then now they're forthcoming. You said, do this generation, do they go to the... No, well, before, if you are hard-nosed all the time, no, they're not. But if you say, hey, come in if you got any questions, more than willing to help you, even if it's a dumb question. Because guess what? No question's a dumb question. That's all you got to say right there.
I like that. So the open door policy is what you got to kind of have. And you have to foster maybe an inquisitive nature, I guess, because, some people, don't know that asking questions can actually help them.
Right.
Maybe.
I agree with that. And it's on the players too, but you have to create this environment where they feel like they can go to you. And if you do that, then if he doesn't come, that's on him. That's on him. There's nothing you can do if you're not asking me questions. What am I doing wrong, coach? What do I do to get better? Inquisitive players end up having success. I'm going to tell you one thing. I was asking all kind of questions to the point where the coach was like, dang, man, this dude's asking questions all the time. Like, hey, Blaine, quit asking questions. You're making the meeting a little too long. And well, I don't know the answer. I'm confused.
The Titans traded up for Malik Willis, right? And a lot of people are celebrating, maybe even calling this a let Rand cook moment and a masterclass that he got a 7th-round pick for Malik Willis. Obviously, it was a player that he was going to cut if he's going to take a 7th-round pick for. Where do you land on the value, or do you think? Here, I got a question.
Well, I'm definitely at the answer. You probably know way more about value.
I want to rephrase what the question was going to be. So I'm going to switch it around. Mm-hmm. Do you think fans get too wrapped up in hindsight and then tie it into the value now? Because obviously, the Tennessee Titans, the old regime, gave up a lot to go get Malik Willis, and it never panned out. But they turn around and get a 7th-round pick. Do you think winning the trade, fans get too wrapped up in winning the trade? And the NFL, and for Rand, it's not like I pulled one over on the Green Bay Packers. It's more of like I was going to cut this guy, so I'm getting at least a 7th-round pick for him. Well,
being honest, most teams are built around the 5th through 7th rounders. People don't think that, though.
Yeah.
But it is.
And Ray Carthon just the other day in an athletic article said such, right? We got to kill the day 3 picks.
I was one. Watch this. Cortland Finnegan was one. We can go down the laundry list.
Look at this team. Jalen Harrell.
Damon Williams. Yeah. It's going to be. So that's the crux of the team because those hit or miss, those first, second round guys, they're so super freakish athletic. You just never know when they hit the road of, hey, man, now I'm not the elite athlete that I used to be. I'm just a real good player. How do they then study the game? How do they then, evolve as a player? You just never know. Some guys just don't evolve and can't evolve. It's also decided on what's in between the ear and your head, between those two ears. Yeah. So that matters, at least as far as football. So, I'm super excited for him. And I don't get caught up in that because he was never going to get an opportunity, so now he's getting a fresh start. Now he is now going to be the number 2. Here he wasn't going to be the 2. I told you it was never Rudolph was the number 2. It was never a doubt. But he's got skin in the game, Rudolph. So now he gets a fresh start, and hopefully I wish him the best. Guess what? They come play the Titans, right?
Yeah, week 3, you never know what can happen. Maybe you're playing against Malik Willis.
We may show a lot of love to love and gets hit by a big love man like Simmons, Big Jeff. And then next thing you know, Malik Willis is on deck.
There you go. Well, when we come back, we'll talk about the latest with the roster cuts around the NFL, maybe what players the Titans should be eyeing on. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, summer is in full swing, and Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun and the sun. We've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a hot summer day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making memories. So call us today to take advantage of these scorching hot deals. Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee summer. And all you have to do is just visit coolray.com. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
It is Blaine and Zach on a roster cut down Tuesday, and we have some Tennessee Titans breaking news here on 104.5 The Zone. I heard this is you. This is what I was told that this is you.
You think I can do that?
I don't know. That's what Reed said. Reed told me behind the scenes this was you. But we have some breaking news. But first, we're brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Stores here on 104.5 The Zone. According to Jordan Schultz at Schultz Report, breaking, the Rams are trading linebacker Ernest Jones to the Tennessee Titans per multiple sources. Adam Schefter has just put out a tweet backing that up. Right then and there, we got Tom Pelissero as well. Yesterday, Blaine was totally against this idea when I brought it up, but we'll see what the compensation is. We don't know what the compensation is. We don't know if there's a contract involved as well, or if this is a good faith trade, kind of like Matt Judon.
Well, you have to do a contract because then what did you trade for him for?
Well, that's what we got to see. You know, they picked up a 7th round pick, from Malik Willis. We don't know what the trade is yet, but once we find out, we'll get that.
They must have been real unhappy with the linebacker situation. And the reason why I said that is because I was trying to play the odds. The guy's a real good player, obviously, over 100-something tackles, 4.5 sacks last season. Wasn't that. It was more so you already signed Murray, and you could probably get away with this season, continuing to develop some younger players opposite Murray. So that's what I was calculating on. But I also was playing the hedge that they wouldn't pay the guy. He now is going to he has to make more than $10-12 million. That's more than Murray. Hey, I'm telling you, the dynamics in the locker room, not unless you got a good locker room, you come in, you got Murray, and then they're going to see this guy, and they go, whoa, hey. So he comes in right as a leader at a position of leadership, middle linebacker. That's always tough transition. So in the middle or right before a season to get somebody up to speed. So any other positions, quarterback, center, middle linebacker, and free safety. I don't like them at the end. Guys who are the quarterbacks of what they do, it's always a tough transition. Like, ask Kevin Byard. Watch Kevin Byard last year with the Titans, and then when they traded him to Philadelphia, he didn't even look like the same player. See? It matters. Chemistry matters. And guys who are in the seat of changing and calling plays, it matters. And it can slow your play down and make you not play as well as your ability says you are.
Well, don't you think they'll probably let Kenneth Murray carry the green dot for a little bit before switching it over to Ernest Jones? I mean, wouldn't that be the smart move? Would you even have to transition?
Well, that's true, but that's still transitioning. Well, if you're going to give him the green dot, then just leave it be and let him keep being the face of the guys looking in the huddle and don't even give it to him till next year.
Yeah. Which is fine. And listen, Kenneth Murray is under a 2-year contract, but there is a contract that can be moved on from after the year. It's essentially a 1-year contract.
Is it for 8 or not? What is it?
It is 8 per year.
8 per year.
But, we don't know what Ernest Jones is yet. We don't really know what he was demanding. We're talking about a player.
To South Carolina, right?
Yeah, South Carolina. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2021.
Solid player.
He's a very solid player. He really cranked it up last year in year 3. Year 2, he was very solid. And that's when he first got the start and everything in year 2. Full-time starter. I don't think the compensation will be too outrageous because I do think he can point at like Azeez Al-Shaair or, Patrick Queen or some of these guys that recently got contracts, but hasn't proven over a length of time that he's as good as them. Maybe Azeez Al-Shaair, but that was an overpay, in my opinion, for Azeez Al-Shaair. And I was a big Azeez Al-Shaair supporter, defender throughout his time here at Tennessee. I wanted them to sign him.
He gave it. Yeah, he's a good, solid player. Right? There's nowhere. He's not nothing special. He's a good player. I don't like him getting penalties after plays. He cost him a couple of drives. To me, those were points. And I've been a former defensive player. If you cost us points, you in trouble. And then you did it multiple times. And you're a veteran player. Unacceptable for some of those penalties he got. But he was aggressive. That was for sure. But he was, he's a good player. But he's not. I think this guy's a good player. But
it's a considerable.
Maybe they didn't. Chance Campbell and Cedric Gray out may have factored into this.
Yeah, it's a considerable upgrade over Jack Gibbons. Don't you feel a lot more comfortable with Jack Gibbons as your number 2?
He's really the backup in this league. Yes, I no doubt about that.
Your rush defense is much improved. That's one of the big things about Ernest Jones is that he had 47 defensive stops last year, which is really, really good for a linebacker. Because everybody thinks that tackling is like the big thing for linebackers, but it's really more about defensive stops and, what you could do out in coverage nowadays. Tackling is important. You don't want missed tackles, but if you're tackling someone, that may mean that you let someone get a little past you or something like that, depending on your average depth of tackle. But I look at it and I go, he can also generate some pressures for you as well. He had 33 total pressures last year, so that's four and a half of them were sacks, but 33 total pressures last year. That's big for this team. This team that loves to blitz linebackers. You got a guy that's proven that he could do it on the field, and you got him and Kenneth Murray. This defense is getting me a little maybe too excited, Blaine. This is where maybe the fandom is showing up, a little bit emotional fandom. But I really like this move, depending on what the details are. We haven't got the details yet.
Well, no, he's definitely a quality starter in this league, but I'm not, gonna get too excited. I haven't seen him play, and I didn't watch him play last year. I just looked at his stats, so I can't tell you how really good he is in coverage or not. Obviously, he's got some really good stats, and it's always more to it when you look at the stats. So all I can say is, wow, I'm wondering if they just gave up a 7th round that they just got.
Yeah.
So is there more to come? When I say that, I'm talking about there's more players maybe traded or somebody's traded to us. It's kind of interesting. It tells you that the organization started with Rand, who's probably making all the football decisions, that they really felt like they need a proven young starter in this league at middle linebacker, with the players of Gibby really being a backup and the younger guys still needed some more time, whether you're talking about Reeves or you're talking about James Williams, whoever you may be talking about, and more special team core guys until they get ready. That's what I'm saying. What are you giving up? Because if you're just bringing him in on the trade value and just for the trade, it had to be a late pick, but are you now about to pay him? And they have the cap space, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's well worth it if you're going to make the trade than to pay the guy.
Yeah. I wonder if it's more of a Matt Judon situation. I don't know if you recall what Matt Judon said after he got traded to the Falcons. It kind of got washed under the rug a little bit.
He hasn't got paid yet, has he?
No, but he said, I haven't done anything in a Falcons uniform. Why should I worry about getting paid?
No, that's just speak talk.
You think that's just speak talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, they traded for you for a reason. So now,
but he's taking the opposite approach of Hassan Reddick.
That's what you say to the public, but do you believe him? Just because somebody says something, do you believe him? Like, think about this. Why was he holding out in New England? Why was he holding out?
Money.
Right. So why did it change? Just because he went to a different team? They know what he can do. The dude is 32. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So he has to say that because he wants to get on the good side, not only the organization, but also the fan base.
Is there something
So he wins in that statement because guess what? He knows he wants to get paid. And guess what? He knows they're probably negotiating with him right now.
Yeah.
The deal may be, just so many millions apart.
What is there a disrespect portion to this, Blaine, in this Matt Judon situation where he feels disrespected by the Patriots, and that's why he gave them all kind of grief and kind of held out. But with the Falcons, he's like, well, new regime, let me put my best foot forward.
Yeah, but, I mean, you always want to do that. That doesn't mean he feels any differently. One thing that won't change about a player, and especially a guy that was a pass rush, he's a sacking machine, is that I got to get paid and keep up with what all my counterparts are making. And so whether it's here or somewhere else, it doesn't matter. But putting my best foot forward is being on a positive note. He's there. Have we talked is he practicing? Do we know?
Matt Judon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully they probably said, well, you practice. Guess what? They have 8 years of film. What do you mean? I need to prove myself in a Falcons uniform. Are we is this a joke?
Do you think that
really?
Do you think that's more of like, when I say that they don't have to pay him right now, it's more of like, you don't have to have the contract done at the trade? Because there's a lot of times it is like, okay, we're trading you with the contract.
You don't have to.
I think they'll get a contract done.
Right, yeah, it doesn't have to be done.
But I kind of look at it, to me, this is kind of where I get a little confused with GM talk and coach talk, right? So I don't know if you were listening during the Senior Bowl time. Mm-hmm. Chad Brinker and Rand Carthon went on the Official Titans podcast with Mike Keith and all of them. And Rand Carthon and him are both echoing and talking. This is before free agency, before the draft. They're talking like, hey, this is like a 2 or 3 year rebuild. This is a 2 or 3 year plan. And then all these moves scream like a team that is looking to win the division, not a team that is looking to be on a 2 or 3 year rebuild plan. I mean, isn't that how you interpret these moves that they've made? L'Jarius Sneed, Cheeto, the draft going with Tavondre Sweat, putting all this stuff, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, keeping DeAndre Hopkins here around. And, a lot of people thought he may get cut or traded.
So what do you mean win now? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I look at it like they're thinking they can compete a lot higher than what they kind of led us to believe they thought. And maybe I'm just not. Maybe this is where being a little naive could
here's
probably.
How I look at it. I think they're making these moves in this short window here because they believe they can be competitive. They're trying to get to the level of competitive. You have to stack draft picks and signings to really get your team where you need to be. I think they want to say, we want to be competitive, and if some breaks go our way and our quarterback gets developed the way he should with the talent we got around him, we can be a 10-win team, get into the playoffs, and guess what? Nobody will want to play you. That is what I think they're thinking based off their moves. I don't think we're talking about an offensive line has been restructured. I mean, watch this. Did any of these dudes start Skoronski, but he did the entire season? I mean, so I just think that they're trying to say we need to be competitive. You got to think about where we're at now. The AFC South is probably going to be one of the more competitive divisions. I mean, especially with young up-and-coming quarterbacks. So I think first and foremost, you're always trying to win the division. So they're trying to make sure they keep pace with the Texans. Because right now, if C.J. Stroud is up on his feet, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's. I think I maybe have some culture shock here because the Tennessee Titans are making a lot of moves that seemed taboo just a couple of seasons ago.
Well, it's because we're not used to seeing them making these many moves.
Yeah,
I think that's even over history of time since we've been here. So I like all the moves. I
think it's interesting because
but you got to get them together and mold them together now.
Right.
It takes time.
The last waiver wire deadline trade they made was when they traded for Dennis Daly, a 5th-round pick for Dennis Daly and a 7th-round pick. That was 2 years ago. That's the kind of trades we're kind of used to around here. And if you look at this linebacker room, the prior regime and maybe the prior couple of regimes probably would just rolled with this linebacker room as is and just said, got to coach the players that we got here. I mean, how many times have we heard that? So it's just, it's a culture shock, and it's an exciting thing to see that your GM is like, okay, we don't know where we're at with Cedric Gray. It's a nerve injury in the shoulder. Okay, so if you got that, use your shoulder to tackle a lot. There's a good chance that could.
They believe Gibby is not a starter in this league.
Yeah, they believe that Gibby's not a starter in this league, which maybe the prior regime,
they thought they could get by.
James Williams is not ready, which is probably the correct assumption, but he should make this team. And Otis Reese, concussion protocol, limited action, undrafted free agent just in the second year. Makes sense not to roll with these guys, but they see an issue and they immediately try their best to correct it. And you think about all the moves that we haven't heard about that they've tried to attempt. That's something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean that they weren't like one of the other, so-and-so player gets traded and there was like, oh, well, there's 5 other teams inside, that were also interested.
They definitely were players in some other things. Yeah. It's rest assured of that. I'm interested to see if Burks is even out there. Is that a possibility? The way they may, I don't know what you could get for them, but I'm just saying. I mean, they are making moves, and I like it. Because we haven't seen anything like that actually in Titans history. Yeah. Really. Movers and shakers. He's addressing all holes. I think really only holes are left really to address are backup tackle, a proven player, maybe another veteran corner who has some skin in the game, that in case they have some injuries to the guys who were brought in here at starters. And then maybe a every down pass rusher. Like, just think about that. That's not a lot. Now, you may want to still address, I don't know how they feel about safety, maybe backups. I mean, I haven't seen very much of Jamal Adams. And I said if he's not healthy, then they got him for cheap. So it was a no-brainer. So wait to see what comes with him. But other than that, I think they've kind of tried to address all holes, at least to get them through this season. And, man, you just never know. In the National Football League, man, when you got the football guys on your side, you just never know. And Levis gets hot, and then next thing you know, he's cooking. I mean,
in the press conference after Vrabel was fired, Ren Carthon said the famous phrase that got critiqued heavily: "The ball just didn't bounce our way." Mm-hmm. It really seems in this free agency and this draft, the ball is bouncing their way right now. I mean, things are happening, dominoes are falling in their favor, which may not have always been the case for the Tennessee Titans, and it's not always the case for every team in free agency. But hey, Chance Campbell goes on IR. Well, here's a disgruntled linebacker on another team you may be able to trade for cheap. You may have to pay him, but trade for cheap, and he's a proven commodity. Okay, well, there you go. You need a wide receiver? Oh, well, Calvin Ridley, here. We'll give you. We have some money. We'll give it to you. L'Jarius Sneed. We only have to trade a third-round pick in next year's draft. Like, all this stuff just kind of, it's the perfect storm. And sometimes for a team that has been through off seasons like the Tennessee Titans have been through, the perfect storm is what you need to get back on track. And it seems like the Titans are in that. They're in this perfect moment. And this could be, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I know people are going to be like, oh, you're fanboying out or whatever. Yeah. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. But this is like one of those, Vrabel said that they were in a fork in the road moment a couple of years ago and they took a wrong turn. This seems like they took a right turn.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. And Jones, just think about this. Is Jones better than Z's?
I think so. I watched a few of the Rams games last year. I had Puka Nacua in fantasy.
Won, and he's cheaper because Z's got, $11 million per year? And so I don't know what he's going to get, or maybe he doesn't even get a contract.
Well, let's
play it out.
Even say if they signed Aziz and Danico, that may have meant no Calvin Ridley.
Right. See, so they kind of played the card. They hedged their bets in the right direction, even if it happened, on a happenstance. So we shall see. But it's definitely exciting times. I still, a receiver, even a tight end kind of situation is not settled either. I would love to see a veteran guy coming here who's kind of a really good player, like I've said, CJ, but it doesn't have to be him. It could be someone like his career or somewhere there, like just a good, solid player in the National Football League. Once you start putting a whole bunch of really good, solid players in that football league, and then you have your superstars and your quarterback get into a flow and rhythm, they've done a lot really with a coaching change and their coaching in a short period of time. So it's exciting alone just to see how this looks when they start the season.
And then, of course, we got the waiver claims that go through tomorrow at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. And they are 7th overall in there. So then Rand said that he was going to be active on the waiver claims. There's a lot of players that were released, and there are some that are waived. For those that do not know what released means, that means that they are vested veterans. So if you see someone released, that means that they can immediately be signed. If someone is waived, you have to go through the waiver process where the Titans can claim.
Is there any quarterbacks that's gotten waived yet that you like, maybe that they could bring in to compete for two?
Yeah, I mean, like if you want to put a claim in on Bailey Zappi, I'm all in. I think Bailey Zappi has shown enough in poor offensive systems up in New England that if he clears waivers, Bailey Zappi clears waivers, I'd be very surprised. And if the Titans don't claim him at 7th, I'd be very surprised. But maybe they look at a guy like Brett Ripien, who just got released from the Bears. And there's a guy that you could bring in and get some scouting 101, on your opponent for week 1. But there's all kinds of names. So we'll hit some of the names after the break. We also have Dave McGinnis, Coach Mac, on with us at 2:20 p.m., brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
You ever wonder why so many pro athletes go and use stem cell therapy? Because it works. I'm Ron Slade, retired 14-year pro basketball player, and I needed to get this done. After I went through my entire career riddled with injuries, I needed therapy, so I went to Kellum Stem Cell Institute out in Franklin. Why? Because they're the stem cell specialists. They can be yours too. They're the stem cell specialists of the Tennessee Titans. You know why? Because it works.
Make an appointment today with Kellum Stem Cell Institute.
It's Blaine and Zach, two smooth criminals here with you on a Tuesday afternoon roster cut down day. We got a couple of new information coming out about some recently cut Tennessee Titans. We got Quentin Bohanna, who's been placed, according to Justin Mello. The Titans are placing defensive end Okay, I got two different things. Quentin Bohanna is released.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay. I kind of combined these two people. D-tackle.
Yeah.
And then the Titans are placing defensive end or defensive tackle TK McClendon Jr. on IR, presumably short-term IR. Per league source, McClendon was dealing with a turf toe injury.
Yeah, 4 games.
The Titans like McClendon, who played key snaps for them last season.
I liked him too. Yeah.
So that's 2 defensive linemen down for the Tennessee Titans. That means you have Jeffrey Simmons, you have Tivondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day. Obviously, you also have Keandre Coburn, who we both thought was making the rosters. That leaves like Abdullah Anderson, Isaiah Aiton. Yeah. Do they just keep 4? What do they do? But they're kind of thin. That seems like a place that they could maybe grab some guys on the waiver wire or that are going to get cut. But for those that are Isaiah Aiton stands, because he looks like Thanos and he's built, like him. The dream is still alive for all you Isaiah Aiton fans out there.
Oh, I like Anderson too, though. He made some plays in the backfield, getting off blocks. It kind of isolated him when watching it on TV, so that was kind of easy to see in his position. So, yeah, they may be looking for some guys on the waiver wire at D-tackle too, maybe even defensive end. I'm sure maybe waiting to the end, just like they're waiting to cut some of their guys to the end, and hopefully, people have already picked up other players, and they go up. We can get them back on at least the practice squad.
So this is interesting. So this is what it is.
So what was the Jones? Yeah, what was the Jones compensation?
Okay, here it is, because it's a little bit better than what we both thought. Unless Adam Schefter comes in and edits this tweet after I say it. Compensation update. Rams traded linebacker Ernest Jones in a 2026 6th-round pick, so the draft from two drafts from now, in exchange for a 2026 5th-round pick. That is a good deal, in my opinion.
Oh, so the Titans gave up a 5th pick.
A 5th-round pick, but in that next year's draft, but the year after.
Right, 2026.
Yeah, that's what it says right now. As we say this right here, right now, that's what it says.
I thought you said 2025 on that.
No, 2026 on both.
Both, okay.
So that's a pretty good deal. That's a good deal from Adam Schefter right there. Hopefully nothing gets changed after we start talking about some of these other players. Caleb Farley got released. And I think we've talked about Caleb Farley a lot, but there was something I wanted to ask you yesterday, and you said, hey, you need to bring that up on the show. And I forgot to bring it up. But that hit where he knocks the dude's helmets off, Caleb Farley.
Oh, I loved it.
Do you think that was the most cathartic hit of all time? Like he just, all of his emotions in one moment.
Yeah, for him personally, absolutely. I'm sure that felt really good, and probably a lot of frustrations throughout his personal and his playing career. That's one thing about football, though. You can get it all done, and hopefully that can give some hope for maybe a possibility on another team.
Yeah.
That he can stay healthy and still bring some physicality for a tall corner. So I feel for him. As I said on the last couple of days, I just hopefully he gets an opportunity, and then his body doesn't fail him. So he really looked different this year to me. He was moving. I hated that he strained his hamstring because I thought he was doing a solid job for where you're looking for him to progress to potentially, and that is to be a backup in this league, at least as of right now. And he may not even get a shot just because of the history, but it'll be interesting because he was a first-round pick. He's going to get some fillers out there, and someone's probably going to, roll the dice. Desperate times, desperate measures. You just never know.
Yeah. Keaton Ellis and Matt Jackson were both waived, but just now, Justin Mello breaks another one. The Titans are releasing interior offensive lineman Lachavious Simmons, a league source said. Simmons was in the mix for a core interior offensive line backup spot. He impressed with a heavy snap workload throughout the preseason, but the Titans are deep across the interior. Sort of a surprise, but not really. Like, that's kind of on the teetering, right?
Yeah, I thought he would be a great practice squad player because he showed enough for me to say, hey, man, this guy's got some upside to him. So, hopefully I'll be able to get him back on the practice squad. I was stunned. I I love the way he played so much that I even went and looked at it. I didn't even know he went to TSU. I didn't even know that. So he kept standing out. Every time I'm watching him, I'm watching the offensive line, I go, man, 70, who is that, man? 73, man, he looks good. Simmons. And I was like, dang, this guy, he athletically, his physicality, for a backup player, and eventually that's where you're trying to get to. Once you get to that, ladies and gentlemen that are listening, because that's what I was my rookie year, all you doing now is waiting for your shot and playing on special teams. And guess what? Be prepared when the opportunity presents itself. And that's all you want. And I got my first start week 10. And I kept preparing as though I was the starter. And that's all he's trying to get to. And I think the guy is capable of being a backup in this league.
Buck showed earlier today, him and Lucas kind of made a bet. Caleb Farley is going to make it on a practice. Whether Caleb Farley makes it on a NFL team, whether that's practice squad or the 53-man roster, and the loser has to wear Kentucky gear, which I think is kind of a lame one. I think that my thing would have been if Buck loses and he says Caleb Farley's not going to make it on one of those a practice squad or an NFL team. If he loses, he should have to do a soul patch for a week or a Fu Manchu, dealer's choice, cutter's choice. Fu Manchu or a soul patch for a week. Buck does. If Lucas loses, then he should have to wear a bald cap and a fake mustache throughout the whole week.
Oh.
Even on his Nashville Soccer Club spots.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like that'd be a fun
Where do you
day.
land, though, on Caleb Farley's prospects like that?
Well, I just said, I think somebody, when you're a first-round pick, I know he's had a lot of, he may get a shot somewhere. I would hedge leaning more 60-40 that he gets a shot, another shot somewhere else. But, man, it's not a lot of film out there on him here. It's going to be interesting.
Well, when we come back, we'll dive more into some of the roster cuts around the league. It will be hour number 2 of Blaine and Zach. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Zach, hour number 2 here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. The next segment, we'll have Coach Mack of Two Rivers Ford. Excited to talk to him about some of the strategies involved on roster cutdown day and some of the transactions the Tennessee Titans have had. Let's get into maybe some free agents from other teams that may interest you, because we've been talking about guys that may have connections or guys they have faced in preseason, being high on their priority list. I brought up Bailey Zappi. Another guy that they could be looking at is, and you brought him up, is Brandon Allen, who was the 49ers quarterback. The Tennessee Titans obviously need a third quarterback of some sort, whether that's after waivers are cleared and they just sign him directly to the practice squad, or they claim someone and put him on the 53. They obviously need someone to run the scout team. So where are you at on a guy like Brandon Allen, who has familiarity with Brian Callahan, who played against them in the 49ers, who's likely, it hasn't been confirmed, but likely losing his job to Josh Dobbs.
Right.
And so where are you at on that quarterback 3 situation and the benefits of knowing the head coach?
Get Josh Dobbs. Nah. I wanted Dobbs when we brought him in at the end. I couldn't believe we didn't sign him for I think he signed with the Browns for $3 million or whatever the number was. I'm a fan of his, and I think he brings a lot to the table. He's shown his accuracy as a quarterback, so he's a number 2 all day long. I don't know why he keeps bouncing around here. Really like he's a stopgap guy because he's so sharp and can pick up offenses so fast. Yeah, if they let go Brandon Allen, I think there's a connection. I think he was with Callahan and crew in 2021, I think, maybe, somewhere around that. So there's some familiarity there. That's what I was thinking, if he gets released. We had C.J. Beathard. There's some other players out there at quarterback. You said you like Zappi. Thought it was one other quarterback that got released. I can't remember off the top of my head. Just okay, but I think that's going to come down the road. For the practice squad, I think there's going to be, some quarterbacks out there, so I don't think that's going to really be an issue. But yeah, you're right; they got to get somebody to throw it on the practice
Desmond
squad.
Ritter was the other one you were thinking
Desmond
of.
Ritter.
Top tier in the chat reminded me, but that's
Desmond Ritter. Great, I brought him up in there. I would like to see what he could become, and I think that's where the practice squad. He's a 3rd round pick. He had a nice success there in Cincinnati, and then got drafted in the 3rd round, thrown out there in the fire. He just did okay, if maybe below average, probably there with the Falcons, and then they traded him to the Arizona Cardinals. So I wouldn't mind practice squad for him too as well.
I think you brought up 2 interesting points, and I want to kind of expand on it a little bit. You were talking about getting a veteran wide receiver in here and a veteran cornerback. And I agree, because if you really think about the cornerback depth behind the 3 main guys are Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and probably Gabe Judy Lawley, right there, and maybe Trey Avery, and not inspiring a lot of confidence in some of those areas. I mean, but you bolster that, right? A guy that got released from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trey Flowers, got on my radar this morning because he played in 2021 and 2022 for the Cincinnati Bengals. He did pretty well in man coverage. He only allowed 118 yards on 21 targets in man coverage and he played a lot. They played about 44% man over there. A guy that could probably fit in this system, that knows the head coach. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this guy, but we both agree that 5th, 6th quarterback spot is probably the guy that you really want in that spot is probably not on the roster.
Right. Reason why I said I would be interested in him, I don't know much about him, but what I do know, in 2021, the head coach was on that staff. But I think, even though he's not the cornerbacks coach, which is Harris is the cornerback coach, safety coach Steve Jackson, I think, was on staff there with the Bengals. Is that the year that the Bengals beat the Titans in the playoffs?
Yes.
Yes, he was on the staff there at that time. Yeah, so this guy he is very, very familiar with, even though he might not have coached him, on a daily basis as far as the cornerbacks. He definitely knew, how good he was and everything else. So it potentially could be an upgrade to like Avery or Lawley, with only saying because he has experience.
Yes.
And I think you got to have one of those guys got to be experienced. I think Avery and Lawley are good players, but I would want an experienced guy there, as well as even at the back end of the wide receiver position, as you mentioned on the break there with the Brown kid from the Texans that was released. So I definitely agree with that.
Noah Brown was a surprise release. That was very interesting.
Man.
The Texans released him. I mean, he's been in the league for a little bit, but last year he had a career best 17.2 yards per reception. He's kind of got that Josh Reynolds deep speed. He's deceptively long, and he's got a long stride.
What did he do versus the Titans last year in the 2 games? That's what I was going to ask Reed there. Why are you doing your deal?
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it as like, look, if maybe you could find a taker for Treylon Burks, right? Your wide receiver depth takes a hit. But if you could get Noah Brown, who also is playing against, who has been playing for a team in a system that you are going to face 2 times a year, it'd be pretty nice to have that guy on your roster. And Noah Brown is a guy, he's kind of like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine or a Josh Reynolds. He's a guy that's going to be in the right spot, provides you a little bit more athleticism than Nick Westbrook-Ikhine,
right.
But he's at least reliable. And that's something the Tennessee Titans kind of have struggled with in their wide receiver depth, is someone that is reliable that can come in a pinch. He could play outside, he could play inside. What do you think? A guy that is still getting paid.
What's his numbers?
He is 6'2", 225.
Yeah, I like it. I remember him against the Titans. That's why I wanted to ask what he did against the Titans just last year. I don't know if you have it, Reed. Just kind of tell us his numbers, kind of give us a little brief synopsis of his career even as well.
I'll look for it right now.
Oh, okay.
We're posting a YouTube video.
Hey, I got you. It's 9 in 2 games, 9 for 13, 9 catches, 13 targets, 90 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah. See, he was solid. I remember the one here at home. So I think you now are upgrading the back end of your roster and is now going to push. NWI, in my mind, is number 4.
Yeah.
Burks is 5.
And he was fully guaranteed. So he had a $4 million contract, Blaine. Noah Brown did. He's still getting paid $3 million by the Houston Texans, and they still released him. And now, so maybe there's an injury concern or something there, or maybe they just feel really good about the people ahead of him. I have not seen anybody say anything about it.
Remember now they added Diggs and they've
added Diggs. You know, Nico Collins is turned into something. Tank Dell's healthy. You know, John Mechie maybe has looked pretty good.
They talking about maybe he's up for trade too.
Yeah,
by the way.
so maybe they decided instead of trying to trade John Mechie, they're just going to release Noah Brown. They're eating a lot of money. That means that a team could get Noah Brown on the cheap 1-year deal because he's already getting paid by another team.
Ooh, I like that. I like how you're thinking over there, man. So, Zach, I would pick him up. And, you kind of can get some little intel, always helpful, with a team that you'll be playing twice a season. And even especially scouting reports, just even on players. And he's on the offensive side. So, I kind of like that. He may not be happy being maybe the 4th or maybe even 5th guy, but what are you going to do with Burks at that point in time? And I like Burks, but when D-Hop went down, I thought he could step up and kind of showcase a little bit more. I know it's preseason, but, did he even catch a ball?
I think he caught one.
I'm like,
maybe 2. He may have caught 2.
I would have made it a point. I know they're trying to run their offense and not mess up Levis and make sure he goes to his reads and everything. But man, I still don't know what he can do. And it looks like in this offense, he's an outside guy. Like he doesn't. I didn't see him moving around a lot, moving into the slot. So I still don't even know what he is and what he is capable of doing. Outside of his athletic prowess being a first rounder, naturally all those guys are freakish type athletes, big, strong, fast, all that. It is not translating yet, and I want to see it in game.
Yeah,
I've seen it at practice. That's cool, but practice is practice. Game, we talking about the game, and the game is real.
I want to pose a question just real quick for our listeners from a listener, Football Fred in the YouTube chat. He has a question for you, Blaine. Do players who leave teams have to return their playbooks?
Typically, yes, but I don't think it's a big deal.
Gotcha.
Nah, it's not a big deal.
I look at the.
I got all my playbooks from my time with the Titans, Eagles, so they never asked for mine back. Like if you get cut in training camp, little different story. Okay. I think that. Yeah,
but if you get the phone call, you ain't going to make the ride over, right, to return the playbook.
Nah, I don't think so.
I wouldn't.
Some coaches do that. They be like, hey, give me the playbook. You know.
Let me ask you this: if Burks, what do you say to the people that say that Burks won't get traded, like because he's not good? Didn't we just see people say the same thing about Malik Willis? And didn't we see 2 years ago a team trade for Dennis Daly for a 5th round pick? Like at this point, nothing's off the table for me because it's the deadline, right? It's just weird things happen at the deadline. There's people that are like, hey, you know, are you cutting Burks? Are you not cutting Burks? And if you say you're not cutting Burks, maybe we'll offer you this and this. I mean, like, I think Treylon Burks is on this team, but I do leave open the possibility that, hey, there is a team out there who may view Burks in a different light than what the Tennessee Titans do.
Well, with a fresh start, just like Malik Willis, it's trying to interesting just to see what his value is. Like he was a former 1st round pick. What was he? I don't know. 10th pick. I don't even remember now at this point in time. But what would that be worth on the market? You would think he'd be worth a 5th round pick, right?
Yeah.
Then you look at his production and you go, well, I don't know. Like, okay, here, I'm going to give you a good example. Dotson, who was traded from the Commanders to the Eagles in the division.
Yep.
He went 2 picks ahead of, or somewhere thereabout, ahead of Burks.
There you go.
Then you go look at his production. You go, over the last 2 years, close to 1,500 yards. Over the last 2 years, what has Burks been?
Exactly.
Not that. And they gave up, I think, a 5th and a 6th and a 7th. And they, was kind of swapping. And I'm like, well, I don't even know if he can even get that.
Yeah. Heck, I didn't really think that the team could get really 7th for Malik Willis. So you just never know what other teams
he's
see.
a quarterback, so I did think there was a possibility. Yeah, I think it is just more value to the position. And they wanted to be ahead of everybody else and then have to compete against them. So I think a receiver, you go, well, there's a whole bunch of receivers out here. I'm not giving you anything. We're going to have to, up the ante probably if he get on the waiver because somebody's going to give him a shot if he does get released. I don't think they're going to release him, but I sure think I would be thinking about bringing another receiver. And that would be telling you that you're not confident that he can stay healthy throughout a season.
Well, when we come back, we'll be joined by Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop, and I want to know if you have heard about peptides. And peptides are shaking up the fitness world, and they are naturally occurring aminos in our bodies. So as we age, they start to decline, and at some point, they may need to be supplemented. This is why our workouts can stop being productive at the gym. So maybe you feel like you've hit a wall, or perhaps you feel tired all of the time. You may be struggling to stay awake even in the evenings when you get home from work. So if you had the thought that this is just a normal part of aging, it doesn't have to be that way. I started noticing my energy level being really low after the show. And I'd heard about peptides at this station for a long time. So I finally went to Edge Peptide to see what all the fuss about. And I learned a lot about what was going on in my body from the blood panel they did. They customized a plan specific to my needs and what my body was actually lacking. And now I've noticed I got all kind of energy. Ask my wife, yeah. And I'm also mentally sharp. So I'm elated with Edge Peptide. So when you go to Edge, you will know exactly what is going on inside of your body and what it needs to get back to peak performance. So feel better from the inside out. So go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
It's Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. That's Return of the Mac. That you know what that means. It means we have Coach Mac joining us every Tuesday at 2:20 p.m. of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford in Nashville, Tennessee. Coach Mac, you've been a part of these roster cut-down days when you got down to the last 4 or 5 spots. What were you looking for, and how long did those discussions go between the coaching staff and the general manager?
Yeah, Zach, and hey, Blaine.
What's going on, Coach?
Look, this time, they've been preparing this for quite a while. I mean, this doesn't just jump up on you, without any preparation. And so, I mean, they've talked about this. During training camp, guys, on the personnel and the coaching side of it, you have personnel meetings every night. Mm-hmm. Every night you have personnel meetings once you start, and to give the progression of everybody daily, and get the assistant coaches their views on it, get the coordinators' views on it, and also so that everybody is talking about all of these players with your personnel department all during training camp. So when you get down to this stage, and of course injuries play, quite a bit into it, but the progression or the decrease that guys have shown throughout the time is documented daily. And so when you get down to it at this part, there's not really there's a misnomer that there's a lot of arguing about it and this and that. You pretty much set as to where you're going. The thing you look at, though, is you look at, because you also spend a lot of times with your personnel department going over all the other 31 teams. What else is out there? What else could we get? What else could be released? What possible trades, could we make? Because, I've navigated this world for 30-plus years on the telephones in this league during this time. And there's constant conversation going on, not only in your building, but with other buildings going on. So all of that stuff figures into it. So it's not really just a matter of getting down to being, very undecided on who the last 4 or 5 spots are. You pretty much have these guys slotted, but then you have to see how everything else falls in with those other factors that I just talked about.
So a lot of fans and everything think this kind of reminds me of the NFL draft big boards. A lot of fans think the big board, from February to April at the draft is just going crazy. All the players are moving up and down boards. This sounds like something similar to that, where it's not the case. That is not the case for big boards. Is that true here? You're pretty much saying that, like, for our fans and listeners, that it's kind of just been set and you're just moving maybe 1 or 2 names up and down here and there?
Yeah, well, it's very systematic because you're talking about it daily. In other words, it's not something that you put off until the end as to when you have to make a decision. So that's just like putting your draft board together. I mean, it's constant information gathering. Whether you've got during the draft your scouts on the road, you're constantly gathering information and bringing everybody together, or in training camp when everybody's there, but you're still gathering information from around the league because you've got 32 teams, but they're all interconnected in some way or the other. Just like the trade that they just made. Well, Rand Carthon and Les Snead know each other very well. I mean, Rand Carthon came with Les Snead to us at the Rams when Jeff Fisher got that job from Atlanta. And so, those guys have been together quite a while. There's a lot of real close connections around this league that really depend a lot on who you're dealing with, how you're dealing with them, and what type of deal you can probably make with them if the circumstance arises.
When you have when you trade for a player like Ernest Jones, who's going to come in and presumably start right away, what's the impact like in the locker room when it's this close to the regular season start? I mean, obviously he's got to learn the system, and he's got time to do it. But he's got to learn the system, adjust to his new teammates, adjust to the communication that they have already built between each other. What's it like for the players in the locker room in that kind of situation?
Well, the locker rooms in the National Football League, you clearly are trying to establish, some culture and some continuity. But at the same time, they all know that also this is the business. And the only thing constant about the National Football League now, especially since the advent of free agency and the salary cap, is change. So it's constantly going to be evolving. And you very much pay attention to what the personality is of your locker room, and also, but you dive into the personality of the player that you're going to be bringing in. I mean, you don't just you don't just do things in a vacuum. All of that stuff is important, but you look at I remember him coming out of South Carolina. It was a 3rd round pick, I think. We had him graded as a 3rd round pick. Pretty explosive. And then, of course, you look and see, I don't know what the trade details are, but I know in making some of these deals in my career, just knowing if you do something like this, especially in this era of the 4 seasons that you get before you become an unrestricted free agent, it depends on what that 4th year salary is. And it also, if there's any other draft compensation that is traded, it's normally not in the ensuing draft. It's in a draft 2 years from now. So I don't know what the terms were for this one, but I would think it'd probably fall somewhere in those lines.
We're joined by Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford.
Yeah, Coach Mack, I don't know if you can recall. Can you give us a scouting report on him? But, besides he's 6'2", 230 or whatever it is, he seems like his numbers statistically look really good, and that he would probably fit in the scheme with 4.5 sacks. That means he was getting after the quarterback. So this is attacking style defense. Do you have little, nuances or anything you can give us about him as an actual player, even being with the Rams? I don't know if you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I haven't watched it. I know coming out, because that's how we study this
right.
draft coming out and rate these players. Having Dennis, good K&D guy, good key and diagnose, got a thump to him. As you said, about 230 is really, really good at instant triggering, and also he's an explosive guy. I think at the combine, I mean his numbers at the combine, and I always look at lower body explosion when I was all the years that I've done this, looking at athletes. I mean, I think he's close to a 39-inch vertical jumper and over a 10-foot something broad jumper. So the guy's got some lower body explosion, which translates to being able to explode your hips up and to close on tackles. And that's one thing he does do. He closes distance pretty well from off when he triggers.
Well, Coach Will, with Coach Mack giving us some Mack attack, kind of give us, I guess, the pros and cons of the strategy of making cuts early and late. As we see some guys still are waiting until 3 o'clock. The Titans already know who they're going to cut. I mean, so kind of take us through what that's like, being on the staff and why you do that.
Well, the first thing that happens is it's just time. I mean, here's what you don't want. You don't want guys just stacked up, sitting in a line waiting to be released. Okay, and so you do it periodically through the day, because you want. Here's the way I did it. I wanted to be able to spend time as a head coach personally with every player that we released. So when you do that, especially now, it's different, Blaine. It's one big cut. It's one massive cut. So to be able to give your operations people a chance to get everything in order, and plus then these guys are going to have to be able to get moved out of the hotel. All of these things have to happen, but it has to be systematic. And so that's the reason for it now, especially now when we've moved to one cut. It used to be different when you had 2 cuts before the final cut. Then you had smaller numbers to work with, and then you could do it a little bit just for time stretches during the day. Now this is important. And now there are some guys too that you may have a chance, because as I said, the lines of communication around the league right now, guys, are wide open. They are buzzing. So if you've got some guys that somebody may have called you about and may be interested in trading for, then you may be holding on to that to see if you can consummate something before the deadline comes, at 3 o'clock.
How much has I know in my day, has the salary cap been a factor in who gets cut, if it gets close, or has that changed and it really doesn't factor in?
Well, it depends on the higher salaries. Absolutely, it does. I mean, it definitely has it. But normally, and then there's a June 1st designation too, right. Which is something that they implemented to help that out. But it always does. But especially for higher salaries, guys that are still in the middle, or even say on the 4th year, but they were drafted in the 3rd day, those don't take up a big percentage of your cap. I would think somebody that was drafted in the 3rd round, say like in 2021, like Ernest Jones, probably he's in his 4th year now. I would think he's probably somewhere around, I don't think he was a top 100 player, but he was probably close. That salary would probably be around a little bit over $3 million now. That's not a huge percentage of your cap. But salaries that are going to be a higher percentage of your cap, those definitely come into being.
Okay. One more, Coach, and that is, Malik Willis is no longer with us. He's getting a fresh start. Happy for him. But kind of take us through what you saw in his maturation process as a quarterback from day one to how he finished here with the Titans before trading.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this just personally, and then on the air because we watched him from the start, and he had a lot to catch up with coming from Liberty. Mm-hmm. And as I've said before, Hugh Freeze's job wasn't to get him ready for the league; it was to win games at Liberty, which he won a lot of them. But he'd never called a play in a huddle. He'd never taken many snaps under center, all of those things, and then of course just to be able to navigate a pocket. He hadn't really ever navigated a pocket, and so to see his progression, and I give him a lot of credit. I give him a lot of credit for him personally, just accepting the challenge of learning those things. I saw quite a bit of progression. I think the last game that he played here in New Orleans was his best effort.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about technically, and I'm talking about structurally. I'm talking about being able to navigate a pocket, standing in there. He stood in there really good in the cylinder for two really good throws. So he has made improvement. I think that he took himself from a point as to where you thought, this guy will always probably be a practice squad player early on, to now where I think that he continues to work. He'll be a viable backup in this league.
There you have it, Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
When a coach goes on record, Mac, and says something like poster child of what it takes to make the team as an undrafted free agent, like Callahan said of David Martin Robinson, does that mean he's pretty much a lock, or are we all just reading too much into it?
Well, I think, I've been a head coach and I've made some of those statements, but I think he's just stating the truth because, what you saw DMR do, and I think, and again, I've seen a lot of guys come through it as free agents, and then, when they're out there running around in shorts and, in our case here, if they're being an all-metro player in shorts with no helmets on, you think, well, this guy looks good, running, but when he put the pads on, he looked like a football player. The way he moved, so to me, he's exhibited the fact that even though he's a free agent player, he not only looked the part, he acted the part, and he performed the part. So I guess we can take it from there.
Speaking of David Martin Robinson, you have Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley as your three starting wide receivers if they're all healthy. The team is obviously going to be in 11 personnel a lot, which for our listeners is 3 wide receiver sets. But the Titans should see a healthy dose of 12 personnel as well on offense, and so it's not too crazy that this team keeps 4 tight ends, right?
Well, I think you're right, Zach. I think we saw in this last preseason game, a little bit more of what Brian Callahan did. We saw quite a bit of 12 personnel in this last preseason game, and you saw him even in 12 personnel, which is the 2 tights and the 2 wides and 1 back. Him starting those tight ends outside of the wide receivers on initial alignments on both sides, and then bringing them in for man zone declarations and just doing a lot of things just to confuse the eye discipline of the defense. So. You're asking me, your final question was, do I think we could keep 4 tight ends? And my answer to that is yes.
While we've only seen about 1% of the playbook throughout this preseason, what have you thought about the play calling and handling of the game situations of Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson, who are rookies getting their feet wet in their own right in these new roles?
Yeah, but they're not rookies as coaches. Right. I've been in that situation before. Everybody has to be a first-time coordinator because there has to be a first. Everybody has to be a first-time head coach. I've worked very closely with Denard Wilson for 5 seasons. I know what he is. I've watched. I know Zach Taylor very, very well, who Brian Callahan's been with. I've known him for a long time and known what his approach was. I thought in this last game, and of course, just from my point of view as an analyst up there at the Dome, just watching it, I really liked the rhythm and the stacking of calls that Brian Callahan did in this last preseason game. You could kind of see I just go back to when I was a defensive coordinator in this league and getting ready to play an offensive coordinator. The guys that bothered me the most were guys that were able to layer calls, be able to layer personnel groups, and be able to set up calls with other calls while they were looking to see how you were adjusting with personnel groups, and you were adjusting to 3-by-1 or 2-by-2, those types of things. And then the other thing that I really like looking at this, and I think all of us, we saw it on display, the screen game is going to be a viable part of this offense. And I just like the fact in the place as to where Brian Callahan was layering these things in there too. Even though he may not have been calling the plays during this last time with Zach Taylor, I know he was involved in a huge part of what was going on game day. So I think we're in good hands with both of those dudes. Calling the offenses and defenses for this group.
You know, Quentin Bohanna was waived earlier today. TK McClendon goes on IR for the Tennessee Titans. Where are you at on the inside defensive line depth for the Tennessee Titans? It feels like they have their first four fairly secured. Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day, and I would assume Keandre Coburn. Where are you at? Is that a spot that you think that they are going to look to improve through the waiver process?
I think so. I think they'll still be looking there. I mean, they've got some really good size and some experience in there, and then of course, Big T Sweat brings a completely different dimension to them. But the way that I know that Denard wants to play defense, because I've been with him, for 5 years, knowing how we structure the defense. You want enough people that you can rotate and roll through there at that position, particularly because of how vertically hard they want to play this defense, and it takes a lot out of their defensive linemen. And so I would say the answer to that would be probably yes.
We're on with Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford.
Well, Coach, before we let you go, a couple more questions, and that is, why do you think the NFLPA killed the third quarterback rule?
Well, because they want the teams to pay another quarterback rather than put them on the practice squad, and then keep bringing them back and forth.
Oh, man. I guess from your perception as a former head coach, what would have been the pros and the cons to that if they did have a third quarterback rule?
Well, it'd be fabulous. I mean, I wish the rule would have been in place when I was the head coach. You could have that eighth offensive lineman, and he didn't count against you. And to be able to have a quarterback on the practice squad that you can elevate during the season, and then put him back on the practice squad without exposing him to waivers. Count me in on that.
No doubt about it. Well, Coach, I want you to think about this question. It seems easy, but the thought process behind it may be a little different. If you had the opportunity to keep 3 quarterbacks or 2 kickers, what would be your choice? Time's a ticking.
Who's my first 2 quarterbacks? That depends on if I want the quarterback or not. And how good's my first kicker? That depends on the kicker or not.
Reason why I asked that, because I'm going to assume I'm not the smartest guy in the rodeo here, especially when you talk about analytics. You got a guy sitting across from me who knows all about numbers. But if a kicker can win you games and the third quarterback probably will never play, I think you keep 2 kickers. I don't know.
Well, I can't argue with that because I've never seen a third quarterback kick a field goal. I know that.
And that is how we shall end there, Coach.
Thanks for coming on, Coach Mack. We greatly appreciate it. That's Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford in Nashville, Tennessee, the Nashville, Tennessee's most trusted Ford dealer. When we come back, I got a little game I'm going to play with Blaine that he's not really aware of, so you are going to want to stick around for that. I'm Zach, he's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and it's not. People are really tired of that stuff. So if you have been with the unreliable vehicle repair shops, come on over to Reliable, and that'll be Eurofix. Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's really ready, and you don't have to stand around waiting all freaking day. And Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer and without the dealer pricing. And that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of the dealership's overhead, and that's a lot of money. So why would you want to pay for that? Well, a Eurofix Reliable also means 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So make sure your car, call ahead for all the loaner cars are very, very popular. So if you're tired of the unreliable repair shops, come on over to Reliable, and that is Eurofix. Family owned for 24 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. But always tell them Blaze it, Joe.
It's Blaine and Zach here on 104.5 The Zone. Last segment. Glad you took the ride with us on this topsy-turvy roller coaster that is roster cut down day. It's been an exciting day. The Titans made a trade for Ernest Jones. We got to talk to Coach Mack. We talked about the ins and outs of the roster. A few more cuts came through the wire just now. Mason Kinsey, Jerron Christian, Anthony Kendall, Isaiah Aiton, and Jabari Small have all been either released or waived right there. Any surprises or anything among that group? Are you a tad bit surprised about Jerron Christian?
Well, only because he was, Browns in connection with Callahan, but I want to upgrade the backup tackle. I'm still with this veteran part of, I want a guy who's got some skin in the game, who started some games there, good rotational, knows, how to work without actually getting to work. So in a live game. So I want that security blanket at DB and at backup tackle, at cornerback per se. And no, I'm not surprised. I think they can upgrade there, get somebody off of the waiver wire. There'll be some veterans out there, I'm sure.
Okay, so yesterday, you and Easton had a disagreement on Mason Rudolph being a top-tier backup quarterback. Easton Freeze of the Hot Read podcast was on of the 440 Sports Network.
I didn't know what he was. I didn't think he was top 10. I don't know.
He said he was top 10.
Definitely a start. I mean, he's starting the game, so he can't be too far. But
you mentioned like around in the 20s somewhere.
I said someone wrote an article.
Yeah, there you go. So I pulled up that article.
Got to be middle of the road at least, right?
Yeah, so I pulled up that article because I was like, okay, I could see him being in the top 15. Now, what I did was break them up into tiers because I don't like ranking backup quarterbacks seems kind of silly, but I think there's certain tiers. Like your better than average backup quarterback would be whoever wins the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields battle. Jake Browning, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, and Gardner Minshew if he becomes the backup in Las Vegas. I think those guys right there that I named, that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 right there that are better than Mason Rudolph, in my opinion. And I'm going to throw in 2 more before we get to Mason Rudolph's tier. And this is like the guys I'd personally take. Not necessarily that they're better, but I would rather have them than Mason Rudolph, and that's Sam Howell and Cooper Rush. So we're down to now 9. So I would put Rudolph in that next tier where it's kind of like they can keep you afloat and win you some games. I got Mason Rudolph in that tier, Joshua Dobbs, Jarrett Stidham, Tyson Bagent, and Aiden O'Connell. So I got Rudolph right there. Guys that are notable. So I want to ask you your opinion on this.
So Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton. I
had Joe Flacco up there, but you ain't gonna try to. To me, Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton are those guys that they can maybe win you one game, but you're not going to get any flashy plays. But you're probably losing more than you're going to win. Like I don't believe in this Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor is better than Mason Rudolph. They have better careers, but as it sits right now, they're not better in my opinion.
Tyson Bagent.
I have Tyson Bagent in the same tier as Mason Rudolph.
Cooper Rush.
I have Cooper Rush a tier above Mason Rudolph.
Okay. What was the guy that
Marcus is a guy that I have in that Dalton Tyrod tier because Marcus coming in, he hasn't won a game as a backup yet.
No.
So when he comes in the middle of the game or at the beginning of the game in relief duty and plays the majority of the game, he hasn't won a game yet. And I kind of put Mitch Trubisky right there. Josh Johnson's kind of right there. But like, I would say maybe I think he's a top 15 backup. And I don't think that's too crazy. He may be 10th, but I'm not going to sit here and try to argue the semantics of the top 10th best backup and the 15th best backup in the NFL.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, he's definitely shown his oats. He's started some games and done well. I think, didn't he have a winning record last year as a starting quarterback with the Steelers?
Yeah, he did. So I think he could come in and win you some games.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Not maybe like in spectacular, amazing fashion, but if you need a guy that's going to keep you afloat and win you some games, win you more than you're going to lose, that's kind of his tier right there.
I think he's a quality backup quarterback, just exactly what you want, and a guy who, if he had to start 3 or 4 games, he can show you flashes that maybe he could be a starter. But I'm much more comfortable as a backup. Yeah, so yeah, he's solid.
So as
he's not Trey Lance or anybody.
Yeah, so as of right now, we got a minute to go in the show. As of right now, the Titans still have 16 cuts to go. To announce they still have 16 cuts to go. Of course, they have 8 minutes to do it. So you'll have to tune in to 3HL to hear everything else that is going on with the Tennessee Titans and the roster cuts. So 3HL is coming up next. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. And in the meantime,
and in between time,
peace.